Hello, my name is Jenifer, and welcome back to my channel. I'm based in Melton Mowbray in the county of Leicestershire, and today I've got Thomas Sheridan again. And Thomas, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for our conversation that we had back in June. To give me your time and answer my questions. I am so grateful, but not only that, but for supporting my channel. You know, it was amazing. So thank you so much. And I've got just a few more questions. So, but before I begin with the questions, I'll just welcome you. Welcome back, Thomas.
Thank you. I'm glad I was able to help your channel. That was good. It was a good
It
talk.
was. It was. So when we finished the last video together, you mentioned about Ireland and the UK being part of Atlantis. And you mentioned another part of the land where it starts with D, dog, something.
Doggerland.
Right. How did we separate from the rest of Europe?
Well, the sea levels rose, slowly. They didn't rise very quickly. Doggerland is between the UK and Denmark, up northern Holland, that part of the world, northern Germany, what is now. And there was a land bridge between Northern Ireland and Scotland. So people could walk all the way from the west coast of Ireland to basically, you know, the, the Japanese, the Sea of Japan, right across Asia if they wanted back then. And because of glacial changes, the ice age and so on, the sea levels rose. Now people were living in Doggerland, and we know that for a fact because artifacts have been taken up. And so then this happened over a period. Initially, Ireland became separated from Britain. That channel was lower, so it flooded first. So you needed a boat then to cross the Irish Sea. And then following that, the Doggerland completely submerged and separated Britain completely from the continent and created what we have, this archipelago now, what they call the British Isles, the island of Great Britain and the island of Ireland.
Wonderful, thank you. Also, at the towards the end of the video, you mentioned about we're coming to an end of a cycle, a 24,000 cycle. Do you remember? No, you
Yeah,
probably won't
well,
remember.
well, we are coming to the end of cycles. There definitely seems to be something happening now. The Kali Yuga, which was the cycle that we're in now within the Vedic tradition, isn't supposed to end. There was a great debate of like for several hundred years or several thousand years. But in in India and in Sri Lanka in recent times, some of the the religious people there have said that the calculation date of the beginning of that yuga was wrong. And they reckon that 2024, 2025, 2026 is when the cycle will probably end. And now this has been taken off universally within Vedic and Hinduism a lot. And the changes we're going through in the world at the moment seems to indicate that there's a wave function collapse, that the human psyche is changing. There's all sorts of magnetic changes in the earth. You have the Schumann resonance changing. You have lots of solar activity. And now it doesn't happen like a switch. It's a sine wave, so it'll go down slowly and take off slowly. But I think we're definitely, from a personal point of view, absolutely we've come to a new cycle where we're entering into it, and things that mattered a few years ago really don't matter now because we're in a different psychic. Now, remember, consciousness and is what really the human consciousness is what really determines this. So how we perceive everything, say 10 years ago, seems is very different now going forward.
Can you I don't know if that's a question, but do you see like did they ever speak about what was going to start to come the new cycle was going to be about or be like? Is that
But there's always chaos. Yeah, there's always chaos at the end of a yuga. Now, if you look at this is the so the Kali Yuga is particularly vicious when it comes to an end. You have horrific wars, and which you had this century and so on. You know, ostensibly since the Reformation. We've had horrific wars and a mass loss of human and military life. What you have is a rejuvenation where you have a resetting. Now you don't have paradise coming in or anything like that, but what you have are opportunities to create a better world for yourself, to follow your dharma. You're less impacted by you're less impacted upon by external changes if you choose to be now. And so we see that at the moment, like the elections in the US, you have so many people who are like, "Oh, this is wonderful. This is a new chance to begin again. Things feel better." And other people go, "Oh, woe is me." Well, the ones who are going, "Oh, woe is me," they are missing out and they will be destroyed. They will actually die in the next few years if they don't get their act together and start thinking that this is they're not fate. You see, the problem is they become fated to think that external forces can completely rule their lives, when in reality they don't want to step out of their own shadow into their own power. And the Kali Yuga, a lot of it is about blaming others for your own failings. And so we're entering into a period where it's like, well, that world is over, and you better stop it and start, owning your own ass. And if you don't, you'll be destroyed.
Any words of advice that you can add to that?
Yeah, just live your life the best life you can and follow your dharma, and don't watch the evening news, and don't get obsessed with anything like on television, and don't allow other people to influence you. That's very important. Follow your feelings, follow your emotions, follow your gut instinct, and you'll be fine. If you start falling into this sort of like low level, low energy consciousness of like everything's determined by what the government does and stuff like that, you're not going to move into this next stage with smoothly. You'll probably be destroyed. Imagine, trying to hold back an ocean. That's what it's like.
Wonderful, thank you. Um, the other question, well, yeah, I always thought that my dharma was my job, but that's not the case, is it? Our dharma is living our life.
Well, it could be a job if you're doing the job you want. My job
Oh,
is my dharma. I write books, I make videos, I talk to people, and I talk to people like you. I'm following my dharma. But if you're in a job you don't like, or you're just doing it because you're paying the bills, you're not following a dharma then.
wonderful, thank you. The next question I had was, you mentioned it in one of your videos that the calendars changed. It was the Julian calendar that changed to the modern day calendar.
Yeah.
That's correct, isn't it? Why did they change it?
There was complicated theological issues, but a lot of it had to do with the date of Easter. There was a lot of conflict over when Easter actually was. You'll find this quite common, true Christian sort of theology since right back to the Council of Nicaea, or even back to Origen of Alexandria's compiling of the first Bible. There's always been a tremendous debate about the correct dating of Easter in Catholic theology, and so a lot of it was to try and to make corrections to that. But that is interesting because like Easter's, they tell you, is based after, in the Christian sense, is named after or celebrated after the Passover, before the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, the festival Passover, the Jewish festival of Passover, but it's named after Ostara, the Germanic goddess of the spring. So it's kind of weird. Yeah, that's basically what that was about. The calendars were basically to try and correctly get the date of Easter.
Wonderful, thank you. Right, so I want to now I've just done a video with Tina Kemp, and at the very end, she said magic is our birthright. So I'd like to step then into the questions about magic, but I've bought your book, which I ordered off Lulu, and it arrived, and I'm just working my way through it. I'm on to page 50. Congratulations to you and Sarah. It's what I've read so far, it's brilliant. But could you just talk a little bit about this book? please?
Well, Sarah and I have a TV show that goes out once a month on her channel called Hocus Focus, where we're both very interested in the alternative views of the paranormal in terms of Fortean explorations of it. Rather than nailing our colors to the mast on every topic, we would say let's explore it from a fresh point of view. And we felt that the show needed a guidebook to go along with it too, because we don't have enough time to express our personal philosophies towards these things. And so that's really what it is. It has examples of sort of famous cases. You might have the Easter Island statues. You might have the Loch Ness monster. You might have all kinds of things, fairies, lots of things, missing history. And we do this, but we also included things that are very contemporary into the human condition, things like strange towns, growing up in an area that's very, very strange. Why is it very, very strange? Why does it attract certain individuals and dangerous individuals and so on? And so it became a guidebook for how the show is, but people are loving it. They're getting a lot of out of it because it's so packed with information, and I was delighted to hear that. But it's yeah, it's a primer for people to explore the strangeness of this world without necessarily following the preordained or previous assumptions or theories.
Wonderful, because where we live, like on this planet realm, what I like to call it a realm, there's more to this place than meets the eye, isn't there? There is many dimensions. Is that the correct word?
Well, our human nervous system, our central nervous system, and our minds are only able to perceive a very limited bandwidth of this universe, a tiny, tiny perceptive bandwidth from all the way from infrared to ultraviolet and beyond that, gamma rays and so on. We can only see a tiny, tiny fraction. We can only experience a tiny, tiny fraction. So either outside what our five senses can perceive through our central nervous system, there's where most of the universe is. It's where it's all there, and so occasionally things will happen where our nervous system will detect encroachments from other dimensions or realities or timelines onto our nervous system and go, what the hell was that? We might think it was a ghost or a UFO or a missing time experience. At the same time, we might encroach into another dimension accidentally and suddenly find ourselves in what they used to call the fairy stray, which is this reality with a different version of it, and so on. So, the limitations of the nervous system is designed so we don't go crazy, because everything in the universe is happening at once, all at the same time. There's no time. It's all happening in a blink. It's the everything, all of it. The whole history of
Really?
the universe is happening in a blink. And our nervous system is just used to quantify this into segments through the clock speed of the human brain and using things like that and entropy as well as seasonal cycles. And that's how we quantify time. But everything in the universe, the purpose of the human nervous system is to not slow it down, but to quantify it at a much lower speed that we don't go bonkers. Yeah, everything has happened in the universe has happened. It's gone. It's happening. It's gone. It's gone. It's in a blink. It's not even a blink. It's faster than that. But we are perceiving it as a passage of time because of our central nervous system.
Fascinating. Thank you. One of the things you said was when we need help, help appears. To me, that sounds quite magical, really, but it's true, isn't it? If
Well,
we
it's Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, isn't it? Where you start out and you go on the quest for adventure, and you meet a mentor who might help you. Then you fall into the dark night of the soul, and then you find someone to rescue, a wizard, a knight, or something like that, and then you return back to normality after the disaster, and it happens in different cycles in secular ways throughout your life, and it will appear when you need it, but only if you're following your dharma. If you're, like if you're not following your dharma, it won't appear. So if you're totally running against the tide, and expecting the tide or the flow of the river metaphorically to change for you. It's never going to. It won't happen. What you have to do is literally go with the flow, like the old expression, and it will happen. Absolutely, it always happens. The Joseph Campbell Jungian concept of the hero's journey is I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen in other people's lives, and it's real.
With following our Dharma, how, like, if you were to describe to a little child, well, intelligent little child, though they are very intelligent, how would you describe following your Dharma then?
Going in life with what you know feels right for you. If you're in a career or relationship, for a circle of friends, a social class, a career group, and you don't feel happy, you don't feel contented, you're not following your Dharma. You are following, you know, convention. Now, you could have a job as an accountant and still follow your Dharma. You could have a job as a civil servant, highly unlikely, and follow your Dharma. But you will know you're in Dharma when everything seems to go okay for you and you're happy with what you're doing. Now, you could be happy poor, you could be happy rich, you could be the richest person in the world and be following your Dharma, or you could be the poorest person you know and still follow your Dharma. It's irrelevant to social conventions. It's something that you just know. I just feel good. I just feel right. I just feel like I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, I was meant to do this. Yeah, this is good. Oh, I like these people. Well, I don't like these people. So it's like literally, if someone wanted to evaluate their Dharma now, just feel about your life. Just am I in the right place? Is this happiness for me? Is this working for me? Is this relationship okay? She's a nice girl or he's a nice fella. We get on fine, but there always seems to be problems. There's problems at the beginning of the relationship. The problems never seem to end. Well, is the universe telling us that it's not working? I'm not in the right, even though we're not, neither one of us is a bad person. Are we both not following our Dharma? And it's okay to admit when you made a mistake and admitting when you made a mistake. Like a lot of people rush into different things in life and it might not start working for them and they might have high hopes. And after a while, you're not following your Dharma if you're trying to find, you're better off saying it's not working out. That's that. It's okay. And start again. The worst thing you
And
can do is not live your true life, not follow your Dharma, because nothing in life will go right for you then. And you always find yourself surrounded by people, all they do is complain and everything goes wrong. It never solves itself.
do you do you think life, um, our Dharma guides us? Because the question why I'm asking is, like, for 20 years I was a therapist at Ragdale, and majority of that I was doing angel card oracle card readings. They were actually fairy cards. And then 2020 took a slight detour, and then I work with children. But then I'm going to be going back to Ragdale in December, doing something that I'm absolutely passionate about. Do you think like life can take you out of that situation just so you can go off onto a journey?
Yeah,
And
it
then
does all the time. It does all the time. All the time it happens. You know, uh, you meet someone that gives you a whole different way of looking at things. And it works. It feels great. It works. It works in the beginning. It works at the start. And go, hey, this is good. I like this. You encounter a situation. You get a client at work. Yeah, absolutely it does. It's trying to help you. But it'll only help you if if you're going with the flow. If you're trying to fight for it, fight against it, it won't help you. The universe, like the whole thing, fortune favors the brave. That's absolutely the truth of that. Absolutely. Now, how do you know you're getting into a better position? Synchronicities are almost like the messages from the universe saying you're on the right path. Remarkable synchronicities. I'm not just talking about like your favorite song. You see a poster with the same words on it. And I don't know about that. I mean, absolutely astounding synchronicities that's the universe telling you you're on the right path. It's almost like a wink back from the universe. And that means, you see, because the subatomic fabric of the universe is so completely tight and dense, it's very difficult for humans to break through it. Now they can use magic, but you have to learn magic and be good at that. You also, another thing you will notice is your charisma improves. Charismatic people are following their dharma. You'll always notice that. You say, "Oh, she's a very charismatic person. Oh, he's very charismatic." You know that that person's following their dharma because charisma is almost like the reward you get for doing it, because your charisma is your nervous system amplifying out beyond yourself to the point where people are going, "Oh, I like her. I like him. Oh, he's all right. She's nice. He's nice. Yeah, he's nice to hang around. I like hanging around. I like to hang out with him. I like to hang out with her." And that's your charisma. That's when you know you're on the right path. The charisma is literally comes from a Greek word, means the grace of the gods.
Thank you. The next question I'd like to ask you was, at the age of between 3 and 4, I went to live with my grandparents because my mum passed away, and right from the age of 3, I knew what I wanted and not wanted. And I could always feel someone sitting at the end of my bed, and I used to call down to my grampy, "There's somebody in the room," and he used to say, "No, there isn't." What do you think I was experiencing?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like young children seem to have much more psychic perception, and as soon as they put us into school, we lose it. You'll find that children often say they have an imaginary friend before they go to school, but they see fairies. That's a very common one. Little kids will tell you they see fairies, or little kids will remember past lives. They'll say things, "Daddy, Mammy, when I was a man, I died here in a war." And the parents get frightened when they hear that and says, "No, you were never alive before." And they're going, "Mummy, Daddy, I used to live in that house up there." And then when you get into school, it destroys you. They knock that out of you. And it's like the Pink Floyd song, "Hey teacher, leave those kids alone," you know? And so
Mm.
we have psychic perceptions when we're young children that they kind of take from us, and we have to spend the rest of our lives trying to get it back. What did you see? I don't know. You could have seen, a spirit of some kind. You could have seen a manifestation that was left there. Maybe someone died in that room. Maybe someone was in that room, and maybe it was a fairy kind of thing that just had an interest in a child. You don't know. That's what being a 14 is. Or it could even have been something you projected from your own mind. So being you were probably unhappy at that age and you couldn't really express it. This is what a 14 does. A 14 looks at all the possibilities. It doesn't just say it's this.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right. So the next question, when I went to Scotland, I think it was when the thing ended a bit, so it would have been around about 2020. We went in the caravan, and can you and I felt so uneasy in Scotland. It's almost like I was being watched. I just didn't feel at ease. Can lands in certain areas hold residues?
Yeah, of course you can. Where in Scotland were you? Depends where you were.
Well, we went past Glasgow and we were heading towards Fort William. So we didn't do the route 50, that route. We did the other route. And
Up
I think it,
the East Coast.
y-
Yeah.
well, no, in the center near
Okay.
Glencoe, I think it was.
Yeah, there's
So,
probably a lot of battles. You probably stopped at a battlefield. Ireland's full of that stuff. They call them the hungry glens in Ireland because so many people have died there in the famine, and you suddenly feel an appalling darkness and sense of hunger over you, even though you may have eaten already. And yeah, you probably were in an area where you felt that there was a battle or psychic residue. Neil Oliver has a video this week, very good, about the battlefield of Ogrim in Ireland, or Grim in Ireland, and it talks about like how people to this day go to that battlefield and still they see soldiers, they feel it, they feel an awful sense of dread overcoming them, and yeah, usually some bad stuff happened there, like and you picked up on it, and the human suffering is embedded like us into the rocks, into the soil, into the fabric of the area.
So this land or planet around we live in, it 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 almost sounds to me like records so much information, or takes, or the energy of death, battles, hunger is that powerful that it, I suppose, like once energy's been created, it is never, it's created, isn't it? So where we live, we can go to all sorts of different places, and it's kind of like, I can't think of the exact word which I'm trying to say, but it's like it captures the energy of what's happened there. Does that
Well,
make sense?
if you're a sensitive person, if you're not a sensitive person, you'll feel nothing. Simple as that. So
Oh,
you have to be open to it. If you're a low consciousness, low energy person, you won't feel these things. You won't feel them. You have to be, yeah, your nervous system has to be primed through some kind of, either naturally or some kind of spiritual exercise for you to feel these things, or spiritual path. But no, the average, many people wouldn't feel anything. It's only certain people feel it.
oh, thank you. Back to you mentioned briefly, like a little child remembering their past life. With reincarnation, do you tend to be reincarnated into your family line and your land that you come from? Is so you don't become an Australian one day and then the next life you're an Egyptian. Have you got any ideas on that?
Yes, there's a tribal soul. It's not so much your family, it's a tribal soul. The evidence seems to be that does indicate that you reincarnate back into your tribal soul. And now, what that means for mixed race people is an interesting one. I don't know. Maybe the dominant tribal soul, they, say you're mixed race of different races, and say the Chinese part is the biggest. The biggest part of I'd reckon that's probably where you would go. It's an interesting one though. But there seems to be within the Indo-European concept of there's a tripartite soul, three parts. There's always three parts of everything in the European paganism. Three goddesses, so on. And there's always a triple, like it's triple spiral kind of thing. So the tripartite soul is the individual personal soul, the racial soul, which would be your tribe, and the collective universal soul. So you basically, this is probably why most of us don't remember our previous lives, because it's really, we're carrying a racial soul with us. Well, yeah, the evidence from groups like the Druze, who are a religious group in the Middle East. There's about 500,000 of them living in Israel and Lebanon, and they participate in active reincarnation, in that if a child says I lived on this street, the parents take them down to meet their ex-family members and this
Wow.
kind of thing. So the evidence is, and it's also, you come back in your gender. Nobody comes back. I've seen no evidence of a man coming back as a woman or a woman coming back as a man. You come back as your gender. So you definitely have. Now, this pisses off a lot of the new age types who say, oh, we're one oversoul. And you're not. It's much more complicated than that. Much more complicated. But you seem to have at your essence, your gender. It just seems to be that way. And now, I may be wrong. There may be cases of it. They're very hard to prove if it's true. But everybody, like when you ask the little children, the little girls will always say, Mammy, when I was a little woman. And the little boys will always say, "Mammy, Daddy," when I was a man. And the Druze thing definitely goes along with this, that you come back in the same gender, and it's also not concurrent. You can actually, if you I've been reading a lot about Ariosophy and Theosophy and Theosophist concepts lately, and there's also a good body of evidence that you can choose how to come back. You can come back in your own life. You can start doing exercises towards the end of your life, or if you're facing a terminal illness, where you can either come back to this life or come back to a new life, and you prime yourself. And it even exists within Orthodox Judaism, this concept that if you feel bad about your life, towards the end of your life, you can come back and live it again, to as long as you're coming back to correct what you feel bad about in the previous life. So reincarnation is quite complicated, but it also seems to have specific rules. There definitely seems to be a racial component to it. There's no doubt about that. Everyone seems to agree on that. So you're not going to these people who are like Anglo-Saxons or Celt, their bloodline is Anglo-Saxon, Saxon or Celtic predominantly, and then they say something like, "In a previous life, I was Cleopatra." Well, that's nonsense because they weren't Macedonians or like her family line was, and and so on. So, but it's a very interesting thing how that comes about. It's also something that people, and I know I'm gonna hurt some people with this, but you got to be very careful with those mRNA medications, those, you know,
Oh
injections,
yeah.
because they contain DNA that's not yours in there. So you may be tampering with your karmic cycle, your reincarnation cycle, and your soul. And Rudolf Stein. Now, I'm not saying you are. I could be completely wrong about that, but it's something that was one of the primary reasons why I absolutely, from the moment that needlecraft thing was announced in 2020, I started studying the science, and when I was saying how it actually goes in and changes your genetics, I was like, they'll have to kill me to get that in me, you know. So that was the biggest problem for me. That was the biggest issue by far. And people like Rudolf Steiner 100 years ago warned us that they would try and use these needlecraft, these medications, to switch off our souls. Now, what better way to switch off the human soul than to scramble it with foreign foreign DNA?
Very wise man he was. And like you, I refused. Right, okay. Bear with me. On my search, of coming out of the new age, like that was my original thing. A lot of the word truthers, I think that's how you describe them, always refer to the Christian Bible. Like they say we live in a realm and we've got a firmament and it's in the Bible says it. And I'm like, really? It's a very common theme amongst a lot of them, always referring to what is being written in that Bible. What's your
Well, it's
thoughts?
theological laziness among uneducated and poorly educated people. They are unaware that the rest of the human race doesn't even apply to that. What do Hindus? Are Hindus all damned? Are Hindus all going to hell? Are Shintoisms or Taoists or on the myriad of other at the Dogon in West Africa are all the other massive pagan tribes all going to hell? These people are polluted by a foreign dogma. Christianity is not a European religion. It never was. It was brought into the Roman Empire by disenfranchised Jews who had been basically outcast from Orthodox Judaism in the Middle East. They'd found the kind of a and they formed like Al Qaeda like cells in places like Rome and in Palmyra in Syria during the time of the Roman Empire. And when the Emperor Constantine came along, it was basically understood that these Christians were demented fanatics who would kill for anything because they believed they would go to heaven. And you have to remember, in the early days of Christianity, they had a reputation of like ISIS on steroids. I mean, they skinned alive Hypatia with shells and burnt down the Library of Alexandria. This is what Christians did. They used the hammers of Christ. They were called. They came out of the Syrian desert wielding hammers and axes, killing everybody and anyone who got in their way. And they were so fanatical that this is also why Hitler had something like 80,000 jihadists in the Third Reich army because they were not afraid of dying. So Constantine said these idiots would be a fantastic religion for the army because there's no fear of death. So he took uh, the existing Mithra cult, which is a Persian pagan cult, which is a monotheistic one god, that basically took Mithra and then bits of others of Persian philosophy, Tammuz, and then later on Odin and Wotan, and created this Christian idea, and it was originally the religion of the Roman army, but a lot of the Romans elites themselves didn't convert. Like on Constantine's tomb in Rome, he's shown sacrificing a lamb at the temple of Lucifer, so he died a pagan. So yeah, it's intellectual and theological laziness that has them believe in all this nonsense. The Bible, and they also many of them are anti-Semitic. They don't like Jews, and yet they're quoting from the first five books of the Torah as if it's absolute fact, which is what the Old Testament is. It's the primary Jewish holy book. These people are fools. They're beyond stupid. They're beyond dement. They're on. They're I won't even have as soon. Like I know it sounds very chauvinistic, but as soon as someone comes up to me and says the Bible says, I literally switch off and go, I'm not having any discussion with this person ever again until they wake up. I'm not interested in you using a book of Jewish fairy tales to from the Bronze Age of a religious books that are brute, telling me you're the religion of love when your God Jehovah, by all accounts, is a demon pretending to be the God, the Demiurge, and here you are quoting his murderous books as if you're some kind of font of knowledge. This is where like uh, the idiocy of things like the flat Earth and everything comes from. They think, oh, it's in the. I mean, I've actually had people say to me, the Bible is real history. How is it real history? Because it's in the Bible. That's like
Mm.
saying that Iron Man existed. Why? Because I have a comic. This is literally what you're dealing with. And while there is, and I'm not going to say there isn't great wisdom within the Old Testament and so on. Remember, Jesus Christ was a corporate creation. He was created as the ideal God that everyone would love. He's got, he preaches peace and love and tolerance. Well, he doesn't really, because in one of the in Matthew he actually calls a pagan woman and her child dogs, and the apostles laugh. And that's out there. Go look for it. And after she asked him to heal him. And he says something like, why would I give my master's crumbs to the dogs, or something like that? And the apostles laughed. It was a pagan woman, begging for her child to be healed, and he decides to heal her in the end when he accepts her as the son of God, and then he says, "Okay," like typical psychopathic type thing, I'll heal your child if you tell me I'm God, and yeah, I mean, they just basically Christianity is McDonald's religion. They just amalgamated all this stuff that they thought everyone would. It was the first Great Reset and the first New Age. Now, at the same time, too, look how many wars have been done in the name of the Prince of Peace.
Mm.
It's a great cover story. We are the people who come in peace and love. But it will tell that to the Cathars, tell that to the pagans that they spent 1,000 years eliminating. Tell that to the Native Americans. Tell that to numerous tribes in Africa. And
Aborigines.
so, yeah, so anyone who comes up to me and starts going on about that, I immediately just say, look, you're either, I don't say there, I won't call him an idiot. I'll just say, you're not ready to wake, you're just not awake yet. It's as simple as that. You've gone back to 1950s Alabama, and you're back in a good old, Bible, thing, and you're trying to claim some kind of intellectual superiority because you mentioned something about the book of this or the book of that. And it goes, you're not, you're not ready, you're not awake yet. I mean, that's the whole point. If you can, I honestly believe you cannot be a Christian and be awake. You can't, because the first thing you would do if you wake up is realize, well, Jesus Christ absolutely never existed. There's zero proof of his existence, and it's very easy to discover that he's an amalgamation of all these foreign deities that the Roman establishment put together to create a kind of Scientology for the Roman elite and the military, and that's why it exists. So it's like, as soon as they invoke the Bible, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm out of here. That's it. And I know I'm being a snob about it, but the fact is that they haven't done any study. They think they have, but they haven't.
So the Bible I was given to at school, maybe I should give to the charity shop now.
Well, no, see, the thing about the Bible is that, like, I've got one, and the reason why I keep it around is to read passages like in the book of Ham, where God says that people with wide noses are to be wiped off the face of the earth. He's not with Africans there. And books like the Leviticus, or even, Exodus, where they glory in the slaughter and the rape of the pagan children and stuff like this. And you see, the first victims of this were the Jewish people, and even many Orthodox Jewish people. They won't refer to God as God. They will call, the tetragrammaton. And they know that there's something not, their God is a God of death as well as a God of love. And you have to be on the right side of it, or it will just wipe you out. And there's actually Jewish Orthodox groups that, you know, that actually believe that they have to pray every day to stop this God from wiping out the human race, because it's almost like a fear-based, you know, deity. And I think there's an awful lot of truth to that, absolutely. And the overwhelming evidence is that the God of the Old Testament is absolutely not the God. You see, Judaism was pagan before it became what we call Judaism today. It was a pagan religion. And a lot of the same things you see in Judaism are also do appear in these mysterious characters like Lilith and Elohim, and these are all pagan gods and this kind of thing. And a lot of the allegory is a lot deeper than you think. I mean, I've done some recent videos, just car vlog things, on my Thomas Sheridan channel about the pagan origins of the Middle East and Judaism. Tremendously fascinating subject about the old Jewish kings like Gehenna and stuff like this. And you know, it's a fascinating subject in terms of how it's controlled people, but in terms of an authentic path, well, we've had 2,000 years of 1,800 years of Christianity in the West. Has the world become a better place because of it?
No.
Proof is in the pudding.
And I think
Pagans,
that's what,
it's the only religion, it's the first religion to go to war over religion. Like pagans never went to war over religion. They never went over the war over like, you know, my God Votan is better than your God Cuchulainn. No, they went to war over land and assets, and they went to war over land and ownership and that kind of thing. They didn't go to war over gods. It was only until the Abrahamic religions came along that you had this onward Christian soldiers, I come with the sword, this kind of thing.
and I think that's why so many people, myself included, are wanting to go back to our roots and back to our ancestors' beliefs, isn't it? Because, you know, why just one quick question. Why do all the churches look the same? You know, like who built the churches?
Well, the churches are well, yeah. Well, the original churches that were built in Rome, and actually even many of them in this part of the world, were originally pagan temples that were converted, and they would do things like they were like a lot of them what we call the basilicas, like the Catholic type basilicas. They were modeled very much on things like the temples that were in the pagan world, like temples of Lucifer and stuff like that. Like if you look at the Pro Cathedral in Dublin, which is the largest cathedral in the city, it's a neoclassical building. It's a Roman temple. Well, it's not an old building, but they continued that tradition. So that's where it originally came from. Now there is a letter from from Pope. I can't remember the name, but he's telling the Anglo-Saxon missionaries in England and the missionaries to Britain and Ireland to not destroy the temples of the pagans because they're very well built. Just remove the unclean idols and sprinkle them with holy water. And he goes there, and the main reason we're keeping the pagan temples is because the locals are already using them for that reason. So just keep, they're familiar with it. Now, so a classics, like there's an abbey in Kilmacdonough in County Galway or Clare. It's on the Galway-Clare border here in Ireland, and you can actually see where the original pagan temple has been altered to make it spaced east-west, like
Hmm.
a church. You can actually see where it's been altered. The building has been altered. So, and also the stonework is a completely different style at the bottom and on one side than it is in the ecclesiastical stonework. In Ireland, the great giveaway of a pagan center is a round tower. They were not absolutely not built by Christians. They're much older. Now, in England, one of the reasons I love going to the English countryside is a lot of the old English churches are former pagan sites. They absolutely are. And so you don't get that as much in Ireland. You get much more in England that they built the church on top of the previous pagan site. Very common in England. And that was I think it was Boniface. That's who said that. It said, just take the unclean idols out, and eventually they put a spire on them or they put a bell, and they made it Christian. So that's where they came from. Now, the original construction is supposed to be based on the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. That's why they have the east-west facing gates. That's supposed to be the granddaddy of them all. But but in reality, many of them have been buildings that have been converted from previous use.
Thank you.
And Muslims have done the same with mosques, like the Hajj Sophia in Istanbul. That was the Cathedral of Saint Sophia. When Islam took over, they just put minarets on either side of it, and I think the Taj Mahal is the same as well. So that was a Hindu temple or a mausoleum. Yep.
Thank you. Well, the other thing I just wanted to ask you, our dream state. I had a dream last week, and funny enough, I was going back to Ragdoll. So we caught a train, and there was two people I used to work with. Got on this train, and the train stopped. I got off at the station. Then I was on a bus, and I was seeing these buildings, and I was like looking out the window going, oh my God, they're amazing. Some buildings were like faint, but some of the buildings were so strong. And I felt we were in Magadesh, but I don't know where Magadesh is, or if it is a place. And it would go, and I said, oh, how long will it take back to, like, how long will it take me to get back to Ragdoll? And they said, oh, the time changes, and it will fast forward again, the time will. So in our dream state, are we entering alternative realities?
I think so, but there's also a symbolism in there as well. I kind of agree with all the theories that one, they're symbolic representations of psychological states of ourselves, and also we are in a different world. I think they can be both, and I think in your case, that's a very positive dream you'd had. The journey that you're on is leading to a beautiful place. So that conversation that was but not going back is being told that like you're on the right path. So I take that as a very positive dream. So that'd be a psychological dream, but there's also dreams where they're so realistic and you know people in real life. I mean, there are numerous people have met each other in dreams and reported it. So that's another reality too. So I think it's both. I think, dreams can be symbolic, but I think there's different levels of dream states. So the symbolic ones are probably like the lowest level, and then when you go into the really deep levels of dreaming, what's called lucid dreaming, we're probably in an altered reality.
Right, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank you again for your time and your energy in answering my questions. Like I said, in the first video that I did, it was more like debunking the new age. And since listening to your conversations and connecting with Tina and Fiona, and a whole light world is opening up for me. So I don't feel like I've got any more questions. I feel like I need to go away and digest what they shared with me and see where it sits, because I was just like, just on a tangent, because sometimes when you look on other people's channels, not the network or the tribe within yours, and they talk about the old ways of like walking on the ground and meditation and mindfulness, and then I just think back to my grandpa who raised me, and his life was about growing vegetables, so we had enough vegetables to last us in the winter. And I don't think he ever really walked barefooted, but he was very in tune with the seasons, and he was very in tune with caring for his family. And I think that's what our ancestors were all about, wasn't it, Thomas?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, the most enlightened people, the most unenlightened people you meet often call themselves spiritual. It's just a cloak they put on themselves. The most spiritual people you often meet wouldn't know a dream catcher from a Bridges cross.
Yeah.
But it sounds like what you said there about You're off now. You've heard enough information. You're off now doing your own journey. You got it. You got it.
Thank you. Well, Thomas, thank you again. I'm going to put all the links to your other channels, and then also the link to where people can buy your books, because I just think Lulu's amazing site, because honestly, the packaging and it comes. So thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to our conversation, and watch this space. I'll probably do a video in the new year and share what I've been putting into practice. But thank you, Thomas. I can't thank you enough. Is there anything you would like to end on before I go
Yeah,
back
I'm
to
going to be
class?
starting a new podcast on YouTube video vlog, podcast thing called Not Quite the Witching Hour. And I'll probably hope to get out at least once a week, maybe twice a week. And it'll just be philosophical with a small p. So it won't particularly any one subject, but it'll be sort of like me having a conversation with the world and seeing where it goes.
I look forward to that. That'd be absolutely amazing. So I'm now going to, I've got a Gloucestershire accent. I'm not exactly Leicestershire. I'm going to just stop recording. Oh, happy. Right. So goodbye.
Okay, I'll see you, Jane. Take care. Let me know when this is up, okay? And I'll share it around.
Thank you.